Yo, what's up guys? Cam here. I wanted to make a video for early phase 2 tips. Now this is going to be as deep as I can go on some of the things I think are the most important for you to focus on. You'll find timestamps in the description that you can click on to go anywhere in the video, but I will be making future videos that are a deeper dive into things like Nomergon, which I'm running Monday morning, which is today if you're watching this, the day it comes out. And then also I'll be making some kind of class guides as well for runes, rotations, talents, that kind of thing. So expect that. For this video specifically, we're going to be covering the STV event, which I think is priority number 1. We're also going to be talking about the Dark Rider rune, which every class will basically have a mini quest essentially to get. We're going to cover briefly the cozy sleeping bag, and then we're going to do miscellaneous tips that I think are just useful information that you may be able to apply while you're leveling to 40. Enjoy the video. Thanks everybody. All right, let's go ahead and get started with the STV weapons. Now, there are other rewards that you can find, rings, trinkets, a few other things, but I really just want to focus on the weapons because that's, I think, the most important thing to get from here. Now, the classes that are getting a weapon is Druid, Paladin, Rogue, Shaman, Hunter, and Warrior. These are all very good and are probably going to be essentially BIS or close to BIS. So you should definitely be looking to get these. Also, I'll get into this more later, but the grind itself isn't that bad from my experience. So keep an eye out for these. Get these as soon as you can. I wouldn't really recommend going here until 40. I don't think it's worth it, especially because the grind isn't that long. All right, let's go ahead and talk about the PvP event itself. Now, it occurs at every 3 hours, so you'll have noon and midnight, 3 a.m. and p.m., 6 a.m. and p.m., and 9 a.m. and p.m. So you can do this a total of 8 times per day, assuming you're on it and constantly doing it. Now, I've only done one event, to be fair, as a full disclaimer here. I will say that I got about 350 coins out of the 1,500 required for the weapons. So really not that big of a grind here, like 2.5 hours, 3 hours of an event, at least from my experience in that one sample size. Now, I would highly recommend a group of 5 for this. That's what I did. The blood is not split in between, so it doesn't really make sense to not have 5. Also, you're going to be really struggling if you're trying to go into this solo. You do lose blood when you die, but the biggest problem with this event where you're going to lose your coins is that when you die, you get a debuff that it lasts a minute long, where you essentially can't earn rewards and people can't get rewards from killing you. That essentially means your number one goal for this is not to die while picking up the kills that you can. Now, when you die, you're losing a little bit of blood, as I mentioned, but not a lot. I think it's like 5. I didn't really pay attention. I didn't really notice it, to be honest. But you do need to turn those in at a temple, which is what is circled in red here. You can essentially just walk up really close to those, and your debuff will disappear, which is how you know your blood, by the way. It'll just be a debuff in the bottom, and when you walk on those temples, you'll get the equivalent amount of bronze coins, I think, or copper coins, whatever it is. So what we did is kind of, as we died, we rezzed and ran over there and turned them in. I think you could just be fine saving these and turning them in at the end of the event if you want. Also want to note, if you're 40, you can run on your mountain like right next to these without getting on top of them and dismounting. That way you can, continue and PvP. So to that point, when you do die, you're going to spawn north, closer to, assuming you're using my spot, right? You're going to spawn a little bit north, kind of sort of where those little houses are, but not quite as north as that cave, right? So in this, you're basically going to want to click respawn immediately on the ghost when you respawn. Rebuff as you will. You'll notice you'll have that 1 minute buff and start running towards where your group is deciding to group up. And I think you can probably be successful anywhere. I generally encourage doing this on the northern part of STV just because the mobs are a lower level and they're less likely to impact your rewards and gains as you're doing this event. Let's go ahead and talk about the tips section of this PvP event from my perspective. Now, I'd recommend bringing 4 DPS and 1 healer. Obviously, don't need a tank. This isn't a dungeon. Healers that have high survivability are very good here because you want to survive. So Holy Paladins with Holy Shock is nice. Resto Druids are pretty good. Wild Growth is incredible. I noticed you do die to Rogues, which, by the way, you're going to find a lot of Rogues here. You're also going to get Star Search a lot from those Resto and Balanced Druids. So that's really what a lot of my damage was coming from. Now, I will say you're going to want to bring consumables here, okay? You hear me? For anyone who doesn't use consumables in PvP very often, I'm talking healing pots, mana pots, FAPs, you should use them here. And I'll tell you, my argument right now is because if that pot will save you from wiping or dying, that will not only potentially give you the blood from the kill that you're getting, but also prevent you from getting that 1 minute debuff where you're now completely locked out from getting any rewards. So the time not spent on the event because you used a consumable and you got that additional blood can now be used for that gold farming, and it will be way more valuable. Trust me, do the math if you like, but you want to be using consumables if you normally don't. Now, the area we covered for this was that top northeast circle to the east of Lake Nazfaridi. I would recommend, at least from what I saw, was around the temple itself is really crowded, and you'll find a lot of people with that 1 minute debuff that you get no value from. So what we did is we kind of camped around that area, so further outside of that circle, as well as to the west by that lake. This way you'll find people without the debuff, but also you should keep an eye out. When you click on people, you'll see their debuff first off, but you can keep an eye out for people that have the debuff falling off soon. You can start attacking them before the debuff falls off, and then kill them as it falls off, or after it's fallen off, and you'll still get the rewards. So the debuff is really the thing you need to be hyper focused on here, because you could do a whole event doing a ton of PvP, killing a ton of people, but getting very little rewards. So please, please, please pay attention to that debuff. That is basically, besides not dying, your number one priority. Now that we've covered STV, let's talk about some of the other early items you should be checking off your list for Phase 2. We've got the Dark Rider rune. Now, every class is going to get a rune from this. Some are going to be better than others, but essentially there's an item you'll get on the northeast side by talking to a guy of Deadwind Pass that will give you the ability to show or make these Dark Riders visible and attackable. Once you kill them in each of these locations, which you can find the coordinates right there, you'll get this item. Once you get all of them, you'll return to Deadwind Pass, and that'll give you the rune for your class. Now, these guys are a bit stronger, right? They're 41 elites. They're difficult to solo. They have high HP. According to WoWHUD, they have a respawn timer. Now, you can do these in a raid group. I think if you have 2 people, you're honestly fine, depending on the classes. I did it with a priest, and it was totally fine. But you're welcome to do this with more people, do it in a raid group on a PvP server, that kind of thing. But this one is one you're going to want to check off early to get that out of the way. The next thing to consider on your way to 40 is the Cozy Sleeping Bag. Now, I'm not going to put a guide together on how to do this because you could just read it exactly off of WoWHead, and that's probably the best way to handle it. But essentially, what you'll get from this is a sleeping bag that gives you 3% additional XP as you rest on it for 2 hours. Also, you'll get items that give you rested XP. My understanding is you get 8 items that give you like 10 to 20% rested XP. So you get over a level or around a level, something like that. So you wouldn't really want to do this at 40 probably, but you could. The thing is, we don't know if it's going to work next phase. So I don't know if it's worthwhile saving these rested XP items. I don't think it will be. I would say that you should use them now because from what we've seen from Blizzard, they really don't like people doing interesting, weird things to boost their XP faster on the start of a new phase, that is. So I don't expect these to work. As far as actually obtaining this item, you're basically traveling to 3 or 4 different locations across Azeroth that are pretty spread out. So if you need some time to cool down and relax at level 35 between your questing or your dungeon grinding, I think this is a viable thing to do to keep your progression moving forward. I don't necessarily think it's the most efficient thing to do, and if you're enjoying dungeon grinding or questing, just continue doing what you're doing. You don't need to feel like you're missing out for not doing this quest line on the way to 40, but if it is something you're interested in, do it. It's not going to make or break either way, so don't let this impact your decision. This is just for fun. Now for some of the more miscellaneous tips. For these, I'm going to go ahead and say, it looks like the enhancements are coming out of Scarlet Monastery. I got all mine on my Druid before I got much deeper than Graveyard, so they may just come from Graveyard, but I think they probably come throughout SM. But anyway, Graveyard is where I got all mine, so I'd encourage you to run that if you're looking to get those upgraded, blessings or anything related to your specific class. I'd also say that SM felt quite good to run. All 4 of those dungeons are not on the same lockout, so doing things like, you know, library armory or graveyard library, some form of combination is quite good as far as keeping your number of resets per hour down. You can also use an alt account, which I did end up making one for this, where essentially you'll have your group of 5, you'll finish the dungeon, you'll invite your alt account, that's a separate Blizzard account, you'll make that the leader, everyone from your party will exit the dungeon, they will log out, that person will then reset the dungeon, and then everyone can log back in, pass lead back, kick, whatever, keep them in raid, doesn't really matter. But we did notice that we were going above the cap quite easily with that. Now, I can't say when it worked and when it didn't work, because I'm not sure it worked every time, but it definitely did allow us to do some additional lockouts. The other thing, and another reason why I'd say, you know, if you have an extra $15 laying around, an alt account is great, is that now you have Warlock summoning stones that are being dropped, at least currently, at SM at all times in that middle area, right where you have those 4 instance portals. You'll find stones all the time. Now, you don't have to be in a party to use these stones. You don't have to be with the person that made it. I'm pretty sure you can also use horde stones as well, or sorry, opposite faction stones, I should say. So if you have an alt account, you park that alt there, you park your main there, even if they're not warlocks, you can actually sell SM summons using other people's portals, or sorry, stones. Now, this may not be the best idea, because if there somehow isn't one, then you're just griefing. But just something to keep in mind with the summoning stones, it does give a lot more potential for these alt accounts and just in general making money off of summoning. And that wraps the video. I just wanted to make sure I was focused on the really important items here. Now, you should expect additional content from me regarding probably a Nomer guide. I'm running it Monday night, which I think is today, assuming you're watching this video when I put it out Monday morning. So I'm super excited for that, completely blind. Expect a guide at some point for that as I kind of learn what's going on there. And then also I'll be doing stuff for class guides, talents, runes, rotation, that kind of thing in the near future. Not sure if it's going to be one video or split out among multiple, but look forward to that. So that's it. Please subscribe, like, comment, all that fun stuff if you enjoyed the video. Otherwise, that's it for me. Have fun in phase 2. KML.